Welcome to the first episode of the WWIM podcast. I am your host, Dave McGrath. Before I introduce my first guest, I'd like to give a little background on how I came to be with this podcast. I want to say 2014, 2015. I'm a writer. I wrote for NaNoWriMo, which is the National Novel Writing Month. And I had all these women in my life that inspired me so much. I was like, I should write about these women. So for 2 years in a row, I did like 2 volumes of a book writing about women who inspired me. Never published it. And then I had the thought that, well, those stories of these women, that's just a little sliver, as our grandmother used to say, of their story. So a better idea came to my head. Have these women on, let them tell their story, because I think that will be way more entertaining and provide a bigger picture of who these women are. So my first guest is the lovely, beautiful, smart, talented, empathetic, kind, my cousin, Katie O'Neill. Thank you so much for coming on, Katie.
Hello.
So tell us your story, Kate.
Oh my goodness, I was so afraid that was going to be your first question. I am Katie O'Neill. I grew up with my cousin Dave. We are the same age, yes. Almost, although you are slightly older.
A little bit.
I am definitely the more mature one.
Oh my God, by far.
Yes. I think you might find that a theme with all the women that you interview. I grew up in Westboro, Mass, and live part-time in Westboro and part-time in Canada. I have worked my whole career in nonprofit, and my extracurricular activities involve music and sometimes theater.
What was it like growing up in Westboro as a woman?
I can't imagine it was that different than growing up Westboro as a man.
Yeah.
But I will say I see a lot of changes between Westboro then and Westboro now among women, like in positions of power, especially like in the town, and also in leadership roles, committees, and all sorts of things like that. I see women definitely taking more ownership over that than before. And we both grew up with very strong, our mothers and our grandmother, very strong, like role model type women. And comment on that? I don't know if they would describe themselves like that.
Yes.
But we saw them as that.
Yes, we did. We did.
I think that all three of them would say me. But I do think, especially because in our families, both our dads worked a lot, worked at long hours, and the moms were there when we woke up, when we went to bed, in between all day long, and so that sort of constancy, presence was really important to all of us, I would say, and to them as there's no denying we were the center of their universes.
Poor Katie had to grow up with me as she had to deal with kid Dave, adolescent Dave. What was that like?
I'd say adult Dave is probably my favorite. But in general, every family needs a Dave. And I especially when we were little, I think you were the source of a lot of fun. You certainly were the leader of of our 2 younger brothers, in terms of finding fun things to do. You were the founder of Eve activities. And I am actually, I was thinking about this the other day, I am the exact middle, because there's 3 of you that are older than me and 3 that are younger than me in our combined families. And it's the only place I'm ever a middle child. But I really enjoyed having contemporary cousins.
Way more than I did. I only have 2 first cousins. Right. I have more siblings than cousins, which is most people can't say.
Very un-Irish
right?
of you.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it? I don't know.
No, I have 12 on my other side.
Yeah.
So
wow.
There's a lot of you. And I enjoy it. I'm the oldest cousin on the other side, and so it's a little different dynamic than on your side.
One of the first Katie Dave stories that in my memory, I don't really remember this. It's been told to us, is the McDonald's parking lot story. So Katie and I went to McDonald's with our grandfather, and back then, this is late mid to late 70s. He parked the car, left us. We were like 3 or 4. I'm guessing the age. Yeah. We could barely walk and talk. He left us in the car, went in to get McDonald's, and Dave thought it was a great idea. Well, why are we waiting in the car? Let's just walk across the parking lot and go into McDonald's. And there's our grandfather waiting in line. Sees both of us walking across the parking lot. Of course, he flips out, comes and gets us, and then me being the responsible one, I blame Katie. I said it was her idea, which it was not. But that story was retold to us many times. I have no memory of it.
I don't know whose idea it was.
It was probably both of ours. I'm sure we said, hey, well, that sounds good.
What are we doing here? Our hamburgers are in there. We probably wanted to go to the playground.
Yes.
That McDonald's playground was
rock
solid, awesome.
Right?
Yes.
And that's actually still a McDonald's, although the Friendly's that was next to it is now a bank.
Right. Yeah, we spent a lot of high school years in that Friendly's.
We did. Mm-hmm. We did. Well, the tradition for me in high school would we would go to Friendly's, mm-hmm. we'd go somewhere, then go to Friendly's, and then go to your house to watch SNL. Like we did that many, many, many times.
That happened a lot.
And my high school crowd, we weren't at least I was not a partier in high school. I don't know if anyone, I remember maybe a couple times at your house, maybe someone showed up drunk, but that never drinking at a party I went to. I never went to like a kegger in high school. I never went somewhere where people were drinking alcohol, which I don't know. It's kind of unusual for a high school
certainly
to go
unusual
4 years.
Graduate of St. John's, I think.
Well, like I put it this way, like I didn't drink in high school. Like chemotherapy was my gateway to alcohol. Like that, I went a weird route to alcohol.
That is the non-traditional route for sure. Yeah, no, we didn't. We weren't. First of all, I would have had no idea how to get booze. Yeah. Back then,
I had no interest either. I don't know why. I just had no interest in it. I thought, well, it makes you do stupid things and it makes you be stupid. So why would I do that?
I also felt like we were always very busy activity-wise in terms of like our evenings were full. Like we were going to the movies, we were going to Chalkies, we were going all over the place to do things.
Well, it's funny, like to explain to kids nowadays. Like back then, someone will come up with an idea. Let's go to the movies. Let's go to Chalkies, and then so your options were either do that or nothing. Like because you'd call up people. Well, this is what we're doing. So your options were you couldn't text anyone to be like, hey, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Yeah, right. Exactly. It was that or nothing, and that's what we did. Oh, actually, speaking of not Chalkies, but another. I don't know if you remember this. So Katie and I were members of SYF, the youth group of our church. You remember this? So we would do things for the community. We would do fundraisers for St. Luke's, but we'd also do the fun activity. You gotta, when you have a youth group, you have to promise them something fun as a reward. So one of these trips was to the bowling lanes in Shrewsbury, right? Mm-hmm. Now, me and my friend Mike Bosch, we were part of this, and we were left behind. I don't know if you remember this.
At the bowling alley?
Yes.
No.
The group, so they were like, I don't know, 4 adults in charge with 4 cars or 5 cars or whatever, and someone forgot we were in their car, and me and Mike Bosch had to call his parents for them to come in. And of course, like, it's so funny, like, thinking of this, because I think in my memory when it happened, I was like, this is the worst atrocity that anyone could bestow on, me and Mike. How dare, when you look back at it, it's like, well, you just call someone to come get you. It's no big deal. But like your teenager mind, like, how dare this injustice of like,
I'll tell you one thing. I bet I wasn't even on that night because I would have been like, "Where's Dave? who had Dave in their car?"
Right.
No, I have no memory of that. But that does not surprise me.
No. Yeah, SYF. I enjoyed SYF for the most part. I mean,
it was very good, wholesome fun.
Yeah.
In general, there was drama. There was always drama.
Oh, of course.
There was a lot of us that did it.
Yeah,
it was
it was a social, and that's why most of us did it, right? The social aspect, which I think why a lot of people go to church in general. True I mean, enough. I cared more about hanging out with my peers than Jesus. I hate to say it. Sorry, JC.
I don't think he takes things. No, yeah, I think part of it was a good way to engage with your peers that you might not normally engage with at school or in your other activities. So it was kids I didn't always know. And for you,
I went to Catholic high school. I don't want to say I was forced to. I was strongly encouraged. I think the word would. But
you were legacy.
But that's right. But that's how I stayed connected with the Westboro kids, and I feel even now more connected to the Westboro kids than St. John's kids. Like,
there's nothing you should be very gratified when you come to the Westboro High School reunion,
yes.
and everyone's like, "Oh, I thought you did graduate with us." Like, right. They don't realize that you weren't there.
Someone, I think it was Dave Tufts, was like, "I swear to God, we had a class together." Nope, we did not.
No, maybe CCD.
So speaking of, you went to Westboro. I went to St. John's. We both went. Our first year went to college in Boston.
That's right.
I was at BC. You were at Emerson. Mm-hmm. Emerson experience.
Oh,
create insanity.
Here's the thing with Emerson. I was one of the only people I knew who had no tattoos and no piercings. And the only one who wasn't like intent on being famous. They really pushed success as equaling fame, and I was much more into learning
right at college.
Right, but I did have a really, really good experience in terms of meeting people from all over the world, and doing a lot of shows that 1 year. Yeah, that was. And what's really funny is I think there were 5 of us from our class at Westboro that went to Emerson. All 5 of us transferred out after that freshman year.
Right, it was Dave Buffard.
Yeah,
you,
Ellie, Celeste. Who was the other person? There was one other. I can't think of who it was, but
none of you stayed.
No one stayed. No. Yeah. So.
And went to St. Mike's.
I went to St. Mike's in Vermont. Yes.
Loved it.
I did love it. Yes, it was. Big fish in a small pond sort of scenario. I mean, it was bigger than Westboro High, but it was not. It was not too ambitious for me, and that was a really good experience in terms of real academic. I enjoyed,
poli-sci.
Yeah,
correct.
I was poli-sci. Yeah. I could have been anything. I mean, when you're a liberal arts major, it doesn't really matter. Note down, all you 17 to 18-year-olds. If you go for a liberal arts degree, it does not matter what you major in.
Right.
But I found that at St. Mike's, the community, all the extracurriculars, just the sense that it being far enough away, but not super far away. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed all that. And I love Vermont.
Yeah. And graduated with aspirations to help the community, help nonprofits.
I guess so. Yeah. I guess I could never in my whole life imagine myself being motivated by money for a job,
right?
Or motivated by good thing, right? Being motivated by money or motivated by like a product or getting on a sales wheel or any of that. That just did not appeal to me, even at a young age when I didn't know anything about anything.
Right. I mean, my father was a CPA, and I saw what he had to dress like, where he had to go, and what he had to do, and I was like, no thanks. Like, and it's funny, all 5 of us are like, with our majors or what we did, are so far away from that. Like, no thanks.
Yeah, it's true. It's actually funny that my dad, who worked in computers and business for a really, really long time, actually at the end of his career does nonprofit now. Right. So I sort of brought him along the nonprofit route. But yeah, I couldn't have imagined even at a young age of doing something that was significantly far away from helping people.
What age do you think you were at when you're like, hey, I can sing and I can sing really well and I can even do a wedding or...
I would say I did not have great confidence in my own ability to sing until I was in high school. Yeah. It was, I did stuff before that and, Players Club and...
you did the junior high shows.
I did the junior high shows, yes. But once I got to high school, and it was Bill Papazisis, the music director at Westboro High, who invested in me and other students like me, just this thought of, this, go do it. And I do not read music very well. I do not play an instrument. So I already had a couple strikes against me.
Right.
But he was the first one who validated, you can just be a singer.
Oh, right.
And get really good at that. And I was always feeling like, but I should play an instrument, but I should be able to read and sight read. And it didn't 100% matter to him. And then I started also getting a few private voice lessons for a few years. And that also really just trained me with fundamentals that helped me. And then in college, a lot more training and a lot more experience. And then like being on stage by myself, like being able to control the pace of the room or the pace of the show or that kind of thing, that didn't come until college. And actually, I really learned how to do that on the altar.
Oh,
not on the stage. So when I was doing liturgical singing, when you're at a liturgy, at a mass, it's very rote. It's you do this, then you do this, then the priest does
without even thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's very controlled and very predictable, and there's no room for improvisation. And for me, that was great.
Right.
Because I knew exactly where I fit into that. And then it wasn't until after I got really good at that I felt comfortable enough to do things that were more unscripted. Yeah,
well, it's funny because we both grew up exposed to Irish music, but it really wasn't until I was in my late 20s where I was like, oh, you can listen to Irish music not just around St. Patrick's Day. I don't know if that was similar for you or...
A little bit. I would say a little different only because when I was very little, oh God, we're really digging into the treasure trove here. When I was in like first, second, third, and fourth grade, I did Irish step dancing.
Yes. Oh.
I was taught Irish step dancing by the meanest woman who ever crossed the ocean. She was terrifying.
Why? How are some, like, there's just some people, I guess every occupation you have people that shouldn't be doing that. She was one of them.
Yeah, she really, maybe she missed her calling. I'm not sure what it was, but it wasn't teaching small children. And I learned all the fundamentals from her, and I could probably stand here and do them today. They are that drilled into me, but I was doing that, and that was usually from like Christmas time until April. It was very intense. Around St. Patrick's Day.
Right,
we would go and dance. I would get out of school. Like I maybe went to like 3 days of school in the month of March when I was in second and third grade. We were everywhere. They had us dancing all over the place.
You were still in Northborough back then.
It was in Northborough. Yeah, I still live in Northborough then.
Yeah.
And but so to me that is how I associated Irish music when I was little. And then when I got older, it was a little bit more like my dad would always be playing it in the car, or we'd be playing. There was a few radio shows back then you could listen to on the weekends, and it would be sort of infiltrated into that. But I was literally just talking about this the other day. It wasn't until I was in mid-college that being Irish became cool. And the exact moment that happened for the world was the Eurovision contest. I think it was 1993, maybe 1994, when they did Riverdance. And that was when I was like, what is this?
Right.
And I rode that wave for the next 35 years. But learning like real Irish music and getting involved in sessions and stuff like that, I didn't really do that until 2000.
Yeah, 2000. Yeah. And then eventually starting your own.
Yep,
session.
And we started our own session. I couldn't tell
that was
what
mid.
Year that was.
I know in 2004 or 5. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was. It might have been 2004.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that ran for 12 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. That was so much fun. Those were fun nights. Our friend Glenn Goland, who we know, he went to a couple of those, and it blew his mind how there could be a 5-year-old and a 75-year-old, and they just start playing a song and they both know it. They both know it.
The 5-year-old could be from Australia.
Right, yeah.
And the 75-year-old could be from somewhere in Ireland or America, and they know the exact same song, how to do it. What song comes after that?
Yeah, they go because they'll go into a song.
Right. The canon is powerful.
If you haven't been to an Irish session, you gotta.
If you haven't been to an Irish session, I don't care who you are, what your background is. If you like, we have people in our lives who say, I don't like that screeching fiddle music. It doesn't have to be that. It could be an accordion. It could be anything. The live element of that session is really a powerful thing. It's great.
My one rule was always if I played guitar and sang, was to go before you. I never wanted to go after you because it was just like, yeah, she's really good. I'm not.
Stop. I mean, you learned the guitar as an adult.
I did.
That is impressive.
Yeah.
Very few people can learn an instrument.
Well, it's like life. It's all about energy, right? How much energy you put towards a thing. And like learning an instrument is, as long as you're doing it like 10 minutes a day, if you set aside those 10 minutes a day, you're just going to get better and better. I don't know if you've ever read Stephen King's On Writing.
No.
It's the best book about writing and that I've ever read. he goes through his process, and he's like, well, writing's like exercise. Like if you do it every day, your muscle, your writing muscle, and it's just gonna. And when I did those NaNoWriMos, by the end of the month, I was just like, nonstop. And that's what it's like, And I just said, like I've said this many times, the most important promises are the ones you make to yourself. I just promised myself I was going to learn this instrument. And then Glenn, speaking of, we've mentioned, he taught me for free, which helps when you get free lessons.
Was that before YouTube?
YouTube was just about, I think he started teaching me in 2003. So like right before YouTube, or maybe YouTube had just started. But yeah, because there's so many. I still look at YouTube to like how to string a guitar or how to like do stuff like that, which it's weird to think of. We didn't have that back then.
Oh my God, there's so much we didn't have.
Right.
Even today I was planning out driving, and I was like, oh, remember when I had to go and print out my MapQuest? or back when I first started driving, I have an actual map.
Yeah.
And like write down the exits that I needed to
When I graduated college, me and some of my buddies drove across country. We had an atlas. We had no reservations. There were a couple places, we know that person there, we're going to stay there. But we had atlas. Yeah, we're going to get there. And we did. And it was fine. We actually had 2 walkie-talkies to talk between cars, but and we did it. Somehow we did it.
You survived. You got there and back.
I know I was going to ask you. So back to singing. So you've sung at some pretty emotionally intense places. Funerals for loved ones. Funerals for other people. When you're doing that, are you just in your mind, like you're not even thinking about like the event you're at? You're just focused on the song? Does your mind drift ever? Like... Hi, because I've been at a few of these, Katie, and I'm like, how is she doing that right now? I can't, how do you do that?
Well, it's, okay, so I will say, again, when I'm on the altar, I am, especially at a funeral, like I am like a helper. I'm helping people with their grief. Like
right.
The song especially at a funeral mass, the music is very powerful for people, and it can evoke, help them through this process. But I just sang at my grandmother's funeral. My God love her grandmother died at age 97 a few weeks ago. This is what I was built for. Like this is all my training, all my everything comes down to those moments when I can just stand up there and do it. And it is a lot of it is just practice. It's just, I've been doing this for a really long time. I can put my own stuff aside.
That's what, so you did, right.
I'm there. Like I'm there, and I'm thinking about the people and we've chosen certain songs for the person who's dead, and like trying to honor them. But the music, especially if I'm, trying to lead people in song, I want you to sing along with me when we're doing this, because this is part of the process. This is part of the celebration. This is part of how we're moving this person from one place to another. Yeah. And I can, well, you know me, I'm bossy. I want everybody to do what we're supposed to do in that moment for that person. So yeah, there have been some real clunkers. I made a decision not that long ago. I am not singing Ave Maria ever again, because I massacred it at a funeral I did during COVID. It was not good. So I'm taking that out of the repertoire.
Oh, there you go.
So it's not always, also it's nice when I'm in charge of the music and I have total control over what we're doing, what key we're doing it in, where we're putting it in the mass. Like that's an ideal situation.
People have come to you and say, I want this in this key, and you're like, sorry. Does that happen?
Not the person, like
the
not
organist,
the bride,
the organist. Okay.
It's the musicians. I can't play this and that. Okay, well here it is. I wrote it down for you. You can, because you can change the way that this, these keys are, or these strings are, but I can't actually change the placement in my voice. Yes.
You mentioned Grammy O'Neal. You want to share any favorite Grammy O'Neal stories?
Grammy O'Neal.
She was amazing.
She was amazing. Well, and how old am I? 47. How many 47-year-olds still have their grandmother? Like I was so lucky. We were all really lucky. She was 50 when I was born, right? So we had a lot of time together. I'll tell you one crazy story. God. When I was little, until I was in my 20s, I had pretty red hair, like very red hair, and the older I've gotten, the browner it's gotten. I don't know why. And now it's getting really gray and white. So whatever, it's nature, right? Grammy, introduced me to someone not that long ago. This was within the last couple of years. This is my eldest granddaughter, Kate. She used to have beautiful hair.
Well, she tells it like it is. That Grammy O'Neill.
I'm not too emotionally damaged by that. I did maybe get a highlight appointment not that long after, but like she was a great lady. We really when you get to know your grandmother, when you're an adult and your grandmother is an adult, it's like a totally different dynamic. She was great.
Became a huge Celtics fan in her later years, which is so funny, I think. Like,
she was so anti-sports forever, right? And then suddenly, those Celtics.
Was it a player? Like, do you know what sparked that? Was it a player or was it?
I think something might have. I think the initial spark was she wanted to have something to talk about with her sons and grandsons, and her son-in-law.
Yeah.
She thought, well, I'll learn about this and see if I can, But then she really got into it more so than some of them. So, yeah, she never stopped learning ever. She would read a book every few days, right up until recently.
Wow, that's something I don't do enough is read. I write a lot, but I need to read more.
I love reading.
Yeah.
I read a lot.
What are you reading right now?
I just finished a really good book called The Year of the Plague.
Oh, was it 2020?
Yeah, it's actually about the plague. No, it's not. I'm sorry. The Year of Wonder. That's what it is. And it's about the first plague in the 1500s. A lot of parallels to the way we're living.
Was there an asshole leader that said it was going to be gone by Easter?
Yeah, actually there was. Truth be told. Yeah. He died a fiery death. Let's
plunge right into it.
Politics.
Oh. What's going on? What's going on in the world? Can't we just all get along? There's enough stuff in the world for everyone. What's the problem?
The people who have stuff don't want to share.
And and it's all about fear. I don't want change. This is how I like it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have been raised by whatever, on purpose or not, to equate security and happiness with things.
Yes. And it's brainwashing. Right. It's not true.
Well, I also think it's just lack of exposure. People don't understand that you can be content, you can be safe, you can enjoy your family and your life without a lot of things or money. And yeah,
because Bernie Sanders he's always tweeting out how many men are in control of what percentage of wealth in the world, and it just every year gets worse and worse, right? It's less and less, and they control more and more. So like that's what it's so funny. Like people will say, well, they'll blame the president for this, and I'm like, well, yeah, but he's part of the president is a small part of until the mega rich or super rich change what they have, like what is actually going to change? Like,
yeah, I don't, without calling for a full-on revolution on the podcast, I do think that politics has almost nothing to do with it. It's all the economy.
Yeah.
It's economics, not politics.
Right. Politics is like it's like a distraction, right?
It is.
I mean,
I think some people in power use politics as a distraction. They capitalize on that.
Right.
But the injustice and inequity in the world, and I'm not just talking about America, the whole world, is profound and almost irreversible. I don't know. You're gonna have to have our friend Leanne in here to explain.
Speaking of, was it Oklahoma that just recently changed abortion laws?
Yep.
What the hell?
They made it illegal to perform an abortion.
Yeah. Up to like 10 years in prison, I saw.
Right. So there's like a huge section of the country now, I think, in the Texas, Oklahoma, where you have to drive 150, 200, 300 miles to get services. And not just abortion services, like regular women's health services. So I don't those issues, when you leave America, people outside of America are like completely nonplussed by this. They have absolutely no idea why we fight over abortion,
right?
Or women's health. It just blows their mind that this is a thing, and it blows my mind that this is a thing still. Well,
and some of those people are probably the people that are saying, "You can't tell me that I need a vaccination. You can't tell me what to do to my body, but then I'm going to tell you what to do with yours." Like,
it's I'm not saying there's any logic applied there, Dave. You're trying to apply logic for people for whom that has gone out the window a long time ago.
Yeah. Does it go back to like fear in church and all that? A lot of it, or what is it?
I think it has to do with control and power, and very little to do with church. I think
just
that's a byproduct.
Men in control.
Men in control, not understanding a lot of things, and also misequating women's health with, misequating women's health with a power struggle. Like, how is this? How did this ever get to be a debate?
Right. It's crazy. Like, I think a lot of people think, well, if it's, I don't know, there's the idea that if it's legal, then you'll just that's all you'll do is just keep getting one over and over and over. And I don't think it should be used as birth control, but like, I don't know what the answer is.
Rare and legal is the answer. And also empowering women, giving them all sorts of different options so that they don't get into that situation in the first place.
Well, I was going to say, like many things, it's about education, correct?
For both men and women.
Moving right into so that's obviously abortion is a huge women's issue. What else, as a woman in Westboro in the United States and Massachusetts, pay differences?
Yeah, I don't see that as much in the nonprofit world. I would say, like,
because you're mostly female.
Yeah. Women in general a lot of power in nonprofits. Not always,
right? But nonprofits don't pay a lot,
right? Nonprofits don't pay. Although I will say that is getting better. I've seen it over the years, not just because I'm older and have different positions, but also because the government invests in some of that fundamental stuff that helps prop up nonprofits so they can scale up and then fundraise and then go for bigger contracts and all that. So.
And part of it too, would you say, are women generally drawn to less paying, like jobs that pay less? Is that part of it too? Like teaching compared to a business job?
I think that is still something generationally that we are trying to. Do women choose that, or are they sort of guided?
Right, that's a great question, right? We still see preschoolers who, a man can't be a nurse. Like at 4 years old, they're saying that. I'm like, we're not giving you that idea.
Where did that come from? Yeah. When my nephew was little, he loves school. He has always loved school, and when he was very little, I said to him, have you thought about what you might want to do when you grow up? And he said, I don't know. I guess a school. And I said, do you mean be a teacher? And he said, well, there's no men's teacher. And I was like, because of course it was preschool. There were no men in preschool. I said, of course there are. I was like, Uncle Dave is a teacher. What? This blew his mind. Like he just didn't know any, and it didn't occur to him. And ever since then, he's been talking about being a teacher. I don't know if women are natural. I would say no. They are not naturally drawn towards nonprofit roles or teaching roles or anything like that.
That's just.
But also, I will say that the nonprofit world, certainly more than the teaching world, allows for a non-traditional path for your career.
Right.
You don't have to like you're not like a lawyer where you have to go in, you have to work for so many years and then you get made, a partner, or you have to move up the chain, or in business, you have to move up the chain. Nonprofit allows a little bit more flexibility in terms of proving yourself in the role and then being able to acquire better jobs, more management skills, whatever.
Speaking of some of your favorite nonprofit experiences, you're currently working with an organization that with Down syndrome.
Yep.
Yes.
So
awareness or
right now
research.
We do Down syndrome. The phrase is we accelerate research into the unmet medical needs of people with Down syndrome. I've always worked in sort of the disability human services side of things, but I didn't know much about Down syndrome. There were 2 kids with Down syndrome on my street growing up, and that was sort of just my understanding of that. But there's so much about Down syndrome that I didn't understand. Like, for instance, in the 1960s, someone with Down syndrome, their life expectancy was 10 years.
Whoa.
So kids in the 1960s with Down syndrome died at age 10, partially because doctors and researchers didn't understand enough about Down syndrome to be able to address their medical needs. And then when we were growing up, someone who was born in the 70s or early 80s, their life expectancy was like 25, which was right on par with one of the people that we grew up with who got Down syndrome.
Yep.
Because of a heart situation that was very common in people with Down syndrome. And
it was too big, right?
To be honest, I don't even know exactly what it was.
Okay.
But since then, there's been a surgery developed for that. In the beginning, they would never perform that surgery on someone with Down syndrome, not just because it was too risky, but because they were like, why would we waste surgery on someone who's going to die anyway? Right. But now people with Down syndrome are living into their 60s and beyond. Right. We have the first generation of Down syndrome retirees.
Wow.
So to speak.
That's great.
It is
news.
Awesome.
Yes.
But unfortunately, because of their Down syndrome diagnosis, people with Down syndrome have a 90% chance of acquiring a Alzheimer's diagnosis by their mid 40s to 50s.
Wow.
So it's an early onset Alzheimer's. It impacts almost everyone with Down syndrome at one point or another over a range of many, many years. And so my organization is trying to figure out why that happens, how to combat it, and to push researchers to research specifically the link with Down syndrome and Alzheimer's and how to address it.
Wow. And now within Down syndrome, is there, like autism has a spectrum. Would you say there's a spectrum, or there's how would you describe it?
There are different ways that someone has the Down syndrome diagnosis. There are certain characteristics that are common to everyone with Down syndrome, but then within that, there is, very little limit to a person with Down syndrome's opportunity, potential to do anything. And so you'll see a wide range of people with Down syndrome achieving all sorts of different things, and self-determining what they see as achievement.
I think, we've talked about comparative, how things were when we were kids and how they are now. I think it's so great that everything's like just out in the open. Mm-hmm. Like we talk about disease now. Like I always liken it to Voldemort, like, well, you don't say that name. Like that's how disease was. You'd say the C word or the can't, you didn't even want to talk about it. But like, or whether you're talking about disease or like abuse or whatever, the more you don't talk about it, the more power it has.
100%.
And that's why it's great to have, like, when I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, I had never even heard of it. I was like, oh, I have this thing, that I've never heard of.
It
right? And now you see, I don't know, so if I tell someone I have it, they usually not only have heard of it, they know someone that has it.
Exactly. Right? So true. So true. And I think that only serves to help all of us understand where other people are coming at, with whatever their situation is. Yeah. I think that's true too. I mean, 50 years ago, if you had a kid with Down syndrome or you had a kid with some other disability, you were often encouraged to institutionalize them. Oh, right. So, that, thank God. First of all, thank God we don't have those sorts of institutions anymore.
Oh my God.
But also that people have come a long way. And those parents who refused that advice and who kept their kid at home, they are the warriors on this front. They made it possible. They made it necessary for society to acknowledge their kid and to figure out, we're going to get a ramp in that school, and we're going to make sure that these things happen. Yeah. And all those battles that they fought over and over and over again. And again, as far as Down syndrome, those parents who are now in their 70s and 80s, they fought a lot of fights. They're tired, and now their kid has Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
right.
Jesus.
So there's a lot of things that, and I'm using Down syndrome as an example, but it's true for a lot of different disabilities.
Yeah. And when we were kids, we were exposed to kids with disabilities. We interacted with them, but they were, for the most part, I would say, separate. During the school day, separate from us. We come out, they come out during recess, we talk to them. But nowadays, the push is get those kids around. Yeah, and it's great. It's great. I mean, not only is it great for the kid with the disability, it's great for the other kids. And we have kids in the preschool class, they know, they don't know why, they just know that kid's different and they need help. And we're, and when that kid does what they're not supposed to do, we just, they're still learning. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, they're like, it's like, compared to how we grew up, it's so much better.
It has to be.
So you talked about your nonprofit, we talked about your singing, talked about politics. We talked about a lot.
We did.
Katie
We never run out of things.
We haven't talked about Graham that much. We share a couple.
Oh,
Graham.
Yeah, we should talk about Graham.
We have to talk about Graham.
In fact,
Graham will get way more airtime on this podcast when it comes. But let's.
She will.
Yeah.
So Graham, as opposed to Grammy. Grammy is my O'Neill grandma.
Yes.
Graham is our shared Hayes
Yeah.
grandma. Graham was. I don't think she ever knew how clever and funny she was. She had some. She was a huge part of our childhood for sure. She was a constant presence.
Who lived in your house for how many years was it?
It wasn't that many years.
Yeah, it was a couple years maybe. Yeah.
She lived with us for a while, and she was a widow for
83 to 96.
Yeah, for a long time, and she made it work.
And she learned how to drive when she was like 60 something.
Yeah.
Hard of hearing, didn't like to use her hearing aids. No. You know the story about her crossing the border.
No, tell me.
So she's crossing the border with my mom
in the car.
And in the car. Yeah. And this is the U.S.-Canada border, and they asked you standard questions. Do you have this? Do you have that?
Firearms.
Yeah, firearms, mace, this and that. No. And then they cross. And she goes to my mom, how come you wanted to know if we had any maids with a D? like house cleaners, like. But it was mace. They wanted the weapons.
Yeah.
Always taught us how to play rummy card game. Would swear at will if we call us little shits if we got the.
She also liked battle,
war,
which was war. Yeah, battle. Yeah.
Loved her fuzzy navels. Her drinks. Oh no! So maybe your mom should say the story. The story about
the Harvey Wellbanger.
Yes, we'll save that one.
That's a good one. There's actually quite a few cocktail related and Graham, who, honest to God, she didn't drink that much.
No, she didn't.
And when she did, she usually had her glass of Zinfandel into which she would pour sweet and low, which is just the most disgusting.
Also salted her McDonald's fries.
No.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes. Oh. Yes.
It's a miracle she lived to 82.
I was going to say mowing the lawn when she was 80.
Yes.
Like would just mow the lawn up in PEI.
Yeah, it was good exercise. Yeah, she was a force in nature.
We will hear much more about Graham.
Tune in, listeners, for more Graham stories because there are quite a few.
So with that, I think we can bring the first episode to a close. Katie O'Neill, thank you so much. We'd love to have you come back. Maybe come back with another person. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I want to hear the whole breadth of your entire lineup first.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to hearing
our next
more
episode.
episodes.
We have a comedian actress, Colleen McCauley. Who is a stand-up comic. She was in the movie Good Will Hunting.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Also, are we going with an entirely Irish theme guest list?
O'Neill, McCauley, yes.
McGrath, yeah. All right.
Well, thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you.
And thank you, listeners. Thanks a lot.